So two long readings. The first one from the book of Jeremiah. What are we going to say about that? Nothing. Because it takes too long to place it into context, and basically what it is, I'm sure all of you picked this up, but what it was really trying to show the difference between two prophets, a true prophet and a false one. The false one being Jehoiakim, and the other one being the prophet for whom the book is named, Jeremiah. Thank you. And it's a context of trying to understand what is it that makes the difference between a true and a false prophet. We're going to bypass that for another time. It's really an academic question which would take too long. And as a matter of fact, if I were ever to become a pope, I think I would just maybe eliminate this reading because it's very hard to make a point out of it. However, when it comes to the second reading, today's gospel reading, very interesting. We've heard this, the one about Jesus walking on water and then Peter trying to follow him. And he begins to sink. He becomes afraid. And Jesus says to him, "O you of little faith." First of all, we have to understand that the Gospels that we read, like today, the Gospel according to Matthew, these are not photographs of what took place. These are not actual historical realities, but rather these are faith documents in which there is something of history and there is also an element of teaching. It's an attempt to communicate something about Jesus. And when you recognize that this is true of all the Gospels, they came out of a spoken context. There were no printing presses. There were no newspapers at that time. And so it was the memory of a people, the consciousness of a people. Not that what we have was made up, but it's not a photograph, but it's meant to communicate something of value, something very important. And so in this instance, it's a scene that is quite common. First of all, we have to keep in mind that in Matthew's Gospel, where the stories that surrounded Jesus, they were spoken by word. And in this one, as a matter of fact, the story is found in Matthew, Mark, and Luke in slightly different ways. So it shows that there is some memory element of that, something of history. But there are certain aspects in this one, according to Matthew, that highlight the role of Peter. Something happened on the Sea of Galilee, and it's not unusual to have storms. I've been on one of those myself in the year that I spent there. That it's an area where the wind comes through in such a way that very often not very often, but commonly these storms arise. And in this case, the disciples are in a boat with Jesus. And we have to remember that, again, this is an event that is may have taken place maybe 40 years. The one that is portrayed in the Gospel, the story comes maybe 40, even 50 years when the Gospel of Matthew was finally put together. So I'm trying to make the point that we don't have a photograph, but we have a memory of something that happened, and that's something that happened with Peter. He being the one in this Gospel chosen to be the follower of Jesus, it highlights his role as an example. And so Peter, wanting to go out as he sees Jesus on the water, in whatever context, he wants to go out after him, and he finds that he's sinking, he's beginning to sink, and naturally he gets very much afraid and he cries out. He cries out as a person in a difficult situation, "Save me, Lord, I'm sinking." And what does Jesus say to him? He says to him, "Oh, you of little faith, you need to cry out because you are afraid in these circumstances," and understandably. But he reaches out to him and he says to him, "Oh, you of little faith." It's almost like a technical phrase that you have faith, but you don't have enough faith. And this is directed to someone who has been chosen to be the leader after Jesus. And so what we have here is a picture that gives us something that came from the memory of the community of the disciples, an incident at sea where Peter, impetuous Peter, wants to immediately to go out after Jesus, and he realizes he can't do it. He doesn't have enough faith to accomplish what Jesus is doing. The point of this picture is it's a picture. It's an incident that has taken place, but it is also dramatized. It's dramatized in such a way as to show that in times of difficulty, and times when we become very much afraid, especially pointing to Peter, who was chosen to be the principal follower of Jesus, that he still does not have enough faith, whatever the circumstances of that scene, what actually happened. And so it's a memory of an event that then has been touched up for religious purposes to highlight the importance of faith in difficult circumstances. That's really what it's trying to say. That's the way it has to be understood. In that context, I think it has a very direct application to what we're all going through in terms of saying, "Lord, get me out of this, save me, show me the way. I'm getting tired. I'm wondering about my faith. What is this all about?" And I think in some way, because I must admit that even these months that I've been away, there have been so many times where I've asked that same question, in a sense, what's this all about? What are you trying to tell us in this? And maybe we will never fully, completely understand what it's all about, except that we who strive to live the life of faith, we reach out and we say in so many instances, "Lord, I don't understand the whole picture, why this should be in this way, but I still have enough faith to say, I know you're going to get me through. I recognize that I am a person of faith, but sometimes I don't have enough faith, and Lord, help me." And so I think it has a direct application in our times as we reach out and struggle and try to find meaning in our lives, try to understand this from a faith dimension. And we too are called, even when we don't see the whole picture, we don't understand, but somehow there is that voice that we hear, that voice of Jesus says to Peter, "You still don't have enough faith. Just stay with me, and I will show you the way, but you will continue to walk, and you will continue to get on in your life."